This meeting in order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Council Bowie, is he excused?
Yes.
Council Bickford?
Here.
Council Ward?
Here.
Council Pomelo?
Here.
La Rochelle?
Here.
Council Mason?
Here.
Council Lunt?
Here.
First item, please.
We have nothing under public hearings. It would begin with audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name and address for the record.
I'd like to open audience participation.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, resident of Lisbon Falls. Two things. I attended the meeting, what was it, last week? The combination school department. No, I missed, it was wrong on the agenda. The workshop was at 6 and it said 7, so I missed it. But I did stay for the school committee meeting. And every member of the school committee spoke up into their microphone so they could be heard. I would like the town council to do the same. Speak up, speak into the microphone so people in the audience and people at home can hear you. Second thing is the November 6th election. I was disappointed that the names of the write-ins on the ballot were not mentioned. It would be nice to know that the people that did vote and wrote in somebody's name, that their votes were noted. The people that they wrote in that and voted for, that their votes were at least noted. Is it possible to get that information out?
It is. I actually spoke to Twyla tonight. She is still working on it, believe it or not. There was over 900 separate write-ins, so it was something that's all I'll get to calculate by hand and write it and put them into proper categories. It is something she's working on. It isn't. She just hadn't had an opportunity to put it all together for that time, and she's still working on it. So there was a probably. Would I be incorrect to saying there was probably more write-ins in this election than you've seen in quite some time?
More than ever.
More than ever. So I think she is working on compiling that list. I'm not sure. It's probably not the.
Well,
There's a lot of things happened after the election that took priority over that. So.
Yeah, with the recount and getting all those things in order and the rest of the stuff. We had to certify results earlier than usual as well with the recount. So there's more things to do. I'm planning on taking vacation next week, so I won't be able to get back to it until the 1st of December.
At some point, you probably have some
Yes,
type of.
I will have
yeah.
it probably out by the second week in December.
That would be awfully nice. Thank you.
Anybody else for audience participation? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Is the council responses to audience participation? If you had any?
Actually, we have none today.
All right. The next item would be under consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Order 2012-171 to approve the minutes of October 30th, 2012.
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Next item, please.
Under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2012-172, the 2012 sewer foreclosures.
Katie Brunel, this sewer clerk, will go over that with you.
Hello. I have prepared a list for each of you showing the accounts with liens that are maturing on December 17th of this year. These liens were filed at the Androscoggin Registry of Deeds on June 17th of 2011. Before filing the liens, I mailed 487 courtesy letters to customers. That happened on March 18th of 2011, letting them know that their accounts had past due balances that would be subject to the lien process if not paid. Then on May 17th, I mailed the 30-day notices, which are sent certified. I ended up mailing 241 of those to customers. letting them know the lien would be placed against their property if the outstanding amounts weren't paid within 30 days. And then on June 17th, 160 liens were ultimately filed for those that hadn't paid. It's then an 18-month process before the liens mature, and again, they'll be maturing next month on the 17th. On October 2nd, last month, I sent out courtesy letters to 34 customers. That's how much, which was really good. That's probably the least amount that I've had to work with so far, to remind them about the upcoming December 17th foreclosure date. And on November 5th, the notice of impending automatic foreclosure letters were mailed to the customers and mortgage companies. As of today, I am working with 15 accounts, two of which I have payment plans, and several mortgage companies I'm working with. 3 I'm expecting full payments by the end of the month. And I'll just continue with my
So we should be down to 10 or less probably pretty soon.
or less, yeah. This is the least amount of accounts I've had since this is the 3rd year that I've been doing this, so that's
Been
good.
pretty proactive though, right?
Yeah.
Any questions for council on? And tonight, do we have to take action as far as on extending these at all, or is this basically
Yeah, just,
presenting it to us?
yeah, just a presentation.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's easy, huh?
That's easy.
That works. Keep up good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Next item, please.
Order 2012-173, permission for Topsom Trail Riders to use the Paper Mill Trail in Beaver Park on Moxie Day 2013.
At our last meeting, Councilor Bickford asked about having the Topsom Trail Riders go utilize the Paper Mill Trail, and according to our ordinances, the council has the ability to permit by vote people to use the trail.
So that discussion that Roger brought up, we actually do have a prepared order that we can read and actually vote on. Is there any discussion prior to that from council at all? We did discuss it a little bit at the last one. Yep. Anybody willing to actually
To read it?
read it?
I'll
and
read
move
it.
forward?
I
Or
would.
12.
You wanna
I can read it for you if
Thank
you'd like.
Perfect.
Be it ordered that the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon hereby grants permission to the Topsom Trail Riders to use the Paper Mill Trail in Beaver Park for ATV access on Moxie Day 2013.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Order passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Under other business, the Planning Board summary of actions and recommendations to address Route 9 concerns.
Do you want to address that, Don?
Don Fellows, current chair of the planning board. I have Karen Paradise with me to support me when I screw it up, so. You have what I have, and you have a copy of our findings of Route 9 concerns, which basically go over the idea of all the comprehensive plans for that area, what a zoning ordinance change would mean for rezoning and the possibilities of overlays and that sort of thing. We had a public forum, and the recommendations based on the public forum were to ensure that existing regulations are enforced adequately, and equitably, to make no changes in the commercial or other land uses for Route 9 that are major from what's now currently in the comprehensive plan, and to update and expand the home occupations regulations, which would benefit not only Route 9 area, but all of the zones within the town. The actions that the board recommended itself were, again, regarding code enforcement, making codes enforcement, again, more equitable, but also making it more possible by clarifying the rules and clarifying the zoning and clarifying all those types of things to make it much more easily enforceable and easily understandable by the people that are concerned. Route 9 zoning and planning, we think that the problems are going to continue to arise regarding land use, particularly on the rural areas. and that when the comprehensive plan is readdressed in several years, that this issue should be addressed again, particularly on Route 9. With regard to home occupations, the board has proposed or is proposing to develop a revised and expanded home occupations regulation and ordinance. That will go through the appropriate process. We're in the process of developing it now. We're going to send it to legal, then we'll send it back up to council. Because of, you have the survey as well on here, and that survey pointed out again the expansion and the further need for a better definition of home occupation. Just to get a brief idea of what was in the survey, I know it says a lot, but basically half of the people that came and participated were either very concerned or somewhat concerned about their neighbors and about the traffic on Route 9. Among other things, the impacts on the agriculture and the impacts on the increased residential development, at least half the people were concerned or somewhat concerned. And what that really led us to believe was that there was a lot of concern about something, but not everybody was certain what it was they were concerned about. And we do know that 72% were concerned about the impact on the neighbors, and 71% were concerned about traffic volumes. So that, along with the home occupations idea, is what's leading us in that direction. Again, on the back of that survey, home occupations regulations should be clarified and improved, 71%. There's a need for improved codes enforcement in town so that regulations can be more consistently and equitably enforced, 71%. 68% thought that there should be flexibility to establish and run small or home-based commercial uses on their own properties. And 84% thought that if there were commercial uses officially on Route 9, other than home occupations, that they should have standards to minimize the visual impact on neighbors. Now that we cannot do without changes to the comprehensive plan, but that's where we came up with the idea that it may be something that when the comprehensive plan is readdressed, it can be addressed then. Just to give you an idea, I was looking through some of you, I don't know if you have questions or not, but if you do, fire them away. One of the reasons there may be confusion on home occupations is if you look at the size of this piece of paper and the writing that's on it, the first few lines are what a home is, the definition of a home occupation as we currently have it in the ordinance. The second few lines is how they're regulated, and that's it on home occupations. And basically it says it's going to be customarily carried on in a dwelling unit or structure accessory to it, carried on by a member of the family, and clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling, and that's all there is in there. A couple of other limits on the number of people that can work outside. So we felt that if you were confused, if codes was confused about enforcing it, we certainly didn't expect anybody else to understand really what home occupations were. So we're working on an ordinance, and currently it's about like this. Several pages, which really doesn't do a lot of limiting, it just does a lot of defining. And just to give you a brief idea of what's going to be in it, or what we're planning to put in it, we followed some model ordinances from other towns, Turner in particular, where they have 3 levels of home occupations. One that doesn't require a permit at all. In a case of somebody has a computer in the corner of a bedroom and operates a business out of it, and there's nobody ever visits them. The second level is those that would require a permit, and one of those is somebody who wants to perhaps have a sign. We haven't decided on what kind or size of sign it should be. We haven't decided on the floor area that you should be allowed to devote to a home occupation. And we also have a third level, which is tentative, but it it would require a conditional use similar to any other conditional use, and that would be a business that wants to operate auto mechanic or that type of thing. The overall function of the whole thing that we're developing is that it has none or very, very little visual impact on the community. And the emphasis was on visual impact. So that's where we are. We haven't got anything official yet, but that's where we are with it. Questions?
Questions from council?
No, sounds good to me.
Because I know you actually originally, when you started working with Amanda, had pretty tight schedule plan for amount of time she's with us. Do you feel that you kind of sort of working towards getting this wrapped up in the amount of time that you thought you would be? I mean, what do you think of for time for this to go to legal, come back and actually go through your process and that process? We're still looking at
We're practicing 21st century stuff. We're multitasking. So this is in progress. We did our bylaws, got them developed. We just finished a conditional use application checklist, which really takes the conditional uses and puts it on something somebody can understand. We're working on subdivision plans and the Route 196 with the town council, Route 196 master planning effort. So we're trying to dovetail all that. We're planning to meet twice a month, and we're only going to meet once in December, we
I
think.
bet. Yep, I don't blame you a bit.
Yeah, are we on time? No, but we're working on it.
We're making progress.
Yeah.
I've only heard good things, so I believe that everything with Amanda is working well, and your group seems to be pretty positive, moving in the right direction, so.
I haven't seen so many people at the planning board meetings, members, since I've been on it, and we have 7 members, two of which are associate members, and we usually have all 7. So that's something that's good for us.
Means you're making progress.
Yeah.
I do have one quick question. The model that you're using, that's mostly based on Turner, you said would be one that was what we would traditionally think of as a home occupation, like a corner office of your home or something like that. The second one, a business that requires a sign on the lawn, and the third one, a larger business that would be more obvious that there's business going on.
The idea is that it would be only obvious from the fact our idea is that you would not know the business is there unless you're able to see a sign that says it's there. That's the only indication.
Okay.
We haven't decided, again, what type or size of sign to make out there, but it basically will be one that we think is probably going to be unobtrusive, not
Okay.
a billboard or something.
So it's the sign that we would see, not the business itself?
Other than the fact there may be a little more traffic,
Yeah.
we're proposing probably to screen any other parking, that type of thing. So it doesn't show as a business. Still a rural residential farmland agriculture area.
And do you feel like the majority of the businesses that we're thinking about that don't fall technically within code right now, do you think that most of them will be able to stay in business if we do this?
I don't think we're going to put anybody out of business with
Okay.
this.
Any other questions for council? Thank you, Don, do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Didn't even need you back up, did you? No? Next, Twyla.
Recommended action plan for the Moxie Festival.
Scott Benson.
Good evening, council. It's good as always to be with you. Especially good to be with Councilor Pomelo, which I expect this is, if not your last business meeting, close to.
It is.
So good to be with you, especially tonight. Sorry to miss Councilor Bowie, but I'm sure we'll see him in December. I'm here tonight to present to you a recommended plan of action for Moxie Festival as you requested as a council at our workshop of September 25th in this room. The proposal is being put forth by the Moxie Festival Committee, and I want to recognize my friend Deb Wagner is here to represent the committee tonight and my office, and it's done in response to that request from the 25th. At that time, the concerns regarding the festival were focused on, 1, the number of man-hours committed by municipal staff to the annual planning and implementation of the festival. Two, the need to create a greater sense of ownership amongst local volunteers and organizations in respect to the planning and carrying out the festival as a whole. And then three, above all else, finding a way to deal with these two issues while preserving and advancing an important community institution. So therefore, we propose the following actions to address those concerns. And please understand that this is a beginning step. It's some short-term actions. Ultimately, long-term, we want to achieve all of our goals fully. But it's clear that we got to walk before we can run in that respect. So we propose these actions. First, two major committee functions: product sales and vendors that have required intensive staff time will be outsourced, if you will, to two local nonprofit organizations, which will perform these functions in exchange for a percentage of the net revenues they generate. These percentages will be negotiated by the Moxie Committee and will ensure a fair split of the revenues. The committee will have the funds it needs to pay for the festival from those revenue streams, while giving these nonprofits a fair share for the time and effort they will invest, and it will be a great commitment on their part. So we'll be looking to make that revenue split fair. It works on multiple levels, in my view. First, it reduces the need for municipal staff time. It reduces a large chunk of that. It encourages a greater degree of ownership in these functions by a community organization. And three, as you know, the Moxie Festival, in large part, it's a great community event, but it also exists to create fundraising opportunities for so many of our local organizations that rely on those funds to provide programming to the community all year long. Here's another case where the Moxie Festival will be supporting a local nonprofit organization. So, second recommendation, the committee and specifically the subcommittee chairs will also assume a greater share of responsibility for the administrative tasks associated with the festival, further freeing up that municipal staff time. This will impact several areas, but the best example is the Moxie Parade. The parade chairperson is prepared to assume the responsibilities of the parade administration, which had previously been filled by staff. It's also important to note in this that the parade chair has also secured the commitment of a team of volunteers to help staff the parade. This was always a huge concern for us. The parade's a big deal, and it's a hard thing to manage. It's a hard thing to plan all year long. It's harder still to manage it on the day of the event. As you know, the Thompson Trail Riders will not only perform this important function and give us a stronger parade staging team than we've ever had, I think, at least in the short time that I've been here, certainly. And that group will also be bringing another sort of signature event to the festival this year, which is that ATV rally you talked about earlier through Lisbon. So by taking these steps, we can, in essence, excuse the town clerk and the manager's administrative assistants from further service to the committee. These two individuals, in the short time I've been here, have gone above and beyond and have been an extraordinary help to the festival and the committee. We thank them for it, but we feel good by taking these other steps that we can reduce the hours they've devoted to these pursuits and address that council concern about sort of overcommitment of town staff time. But I will say that one thing that became clear as we worked through this over the past couple of months is that we could not eliminate entirely the dedication of staff time, of municipal staff time to this festival, particularly in the short term. Though self-sufficiency of the committee and the festival may be a long-term goal, the festival's dependence on the town's financial systems and its insurance coverage requires that the town remain involved in the day-to-day activities of the committee and the festival. So as such, the Economic and Community Development Director will serve as town liaison to the committee. That happens to be me at this point in time. I will serve as the interface between the festival, the committee, in the town's departments, such as police and public works. I'll also manage the finances and process all accounts receivable and payable. I will also help the committee with setting their monthly agendas and running their monthly meetings. So you may be asking yourself, Scott, how's that different from what you've been doing in the past? First, the town interface, arranging mass gathering permits, working with Chief Brooks, working with Ryan Layton and the Public Works Group, is a relatively modest chore. It's a few hours a year, as is setting up the monthly meetings. We're going to better coordinate the financial stuff so that it happens at defined points every month in line with our municipal warrants. So we're not cutting hand checks. We're not doing a lot of the stuff we've done in the past. In the past, it's been happening as needed, and which has a way of escalating and adding to your workload, particularly as the event gets closer. In general, we're going to be a lot more cognizant of municipal staff time from this point forward. We're going to work hard to make sure it's managed in a way that does not detract in any way from my department or the town. Next point, there are many things that simply do not have to change about this festival, and I'm not sure. We had a very, very great discussion on the 25th of September. It was very open. People were very honest. I did leave with concerns that the community thought the situation was more dire than perhaps we talked about that night. As I say, there's a lot of things that don't have to change. There are functions of the committee that run well and don't have to change. There are events that run well and don't have to change. So as a result of this, both the recreation director and the fire chief will remain as members of the committee under this recommendation and will continue to be responsible for the events that they oversee. Mark will continue to work with his staff to run the 5K and car show. Sean will continue to handle the public safety night and coordinate the Friday night events at the high school, which include the fireworks. Both of these guys have been doing this for a long time. They're efficient at it, and it's my opinion and theirs that there will be minimal impact to them as staff members. I do also want to mention that we may occasionally consult with Twyla and Jody in this first year, those nonprofits that will be taking over those functions, or maybe the parade. And we'll tap into these staff members for consultation purposes only, and that'll be kept to a minimum. Just trying to pass the reins here and do it in a good way. Lastly, the recommendation before you also indicates that the Moxie Committee will hold up to 4 night meetings this year to address the concerns we heard at the workshop about meetings perhaps not being as accessible to the public. I will say that many of our committee members prefer the day meetings. It's better for them, and those are the people that are here and doing the work, so we're going to stick with that, but we're going to broaden it out a little bit over the course of the year, try to do upwards of 4 meetings in the evening so the rest of the community can take part, and we certainly hope they do. I don't expect that this requires any formal action on your part. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments if you have them. Otherwise, we'll consider the matter closed for the Moxie Festival and the Moxie Festival Planning Committee, and we'll get to work on 2013. So, any questions?
Any questions from council? The agenda that you have here for the meetings, will that be available on our regular calendar or on our regular way?
Yes, that's our intention. To be candid, Mr. Chairman, I kind of threw that together. We talked about it in principle. I threw it together for the purposes of this report. I want to run it by the Moxie Committee one more time to confirm.
Yep.
But once we do, we'll agree on a yearly or a monthly meeting schedule. We'll post them on the municipal calendar. And when we have evening meetings, it would be our intention to broadcast those on, or maybe that's not the right word, to advertise those on the electronic sign out front.
That's great.
Moxie meeting
Yep.
tonight, kind of stuff.
That'd be great. Thank you.
My
So no
pleasure.
questions, you can move on to your next item.
Moxie Festival Financial Report.
While he's there,
I came prepared. We're also going to present to you tonight, again, on behalf of the Moxie Festival in my office, a financial report on the 2012 festival. You recall last year, we really did a novel here and wrote about the events along with providing you the numbers. We did not do that this year for obvious reasons. We were really focused on getting this plan of action in place. But we do have all the numbers as they exist today. And so here are them. I know you have a copy of this, and a copy's been made available to the public. Let me just give you the highlights on this real quick. On page 4, we have the 2012 expenses, and that's from October 1, 2011 through October 2012. That's what I'm calling our fiscal year for the festival, if you will. You'll see that we had about, the spending was pretty much in line with 2011. You'll see that also there. It's about a $500 increase that can be attributed to any number of different lines there. You can see we spent actually a little bit more on entertainment this year, a little bit more on product, that we offered some different products this year. Public and media relations, we spent a couple $100 more because we probably did more this year. We definitely did more. You'll see a little pie graph down there at the bottom. You'll see that our largest expense is in the entertainment. That includes the musical entertainment you see. That includes the fireworks. It includes the folks that are paid to appear in our parade. Second highest expense line is the logistics, and that really is the electrical stuff, porta potties, all of those different things that kind of go on behind the scenes to prepare our community to accept all those visitors in one day, and vendors. Payroll, which is, again, the reimbursement for the second year now. We will be reimbursing our police and public works for their overtime costs incurred at this festival. I think last year was the first time we did that. We intend to make that an annual event. So as you can see, other product is about 17% of total expenditures, public and media relations and awards both under 10%. You can see page 3 or page 5, 6, 7. There's the detail that you probably recall from seeing last year. There's the activity. And now moving on to page 8, which is revenues. Here's our revenue lines. As you can see, we raised considerably more, and to the tune of more than $6,000 in revenues this year than we did in 2011. Just as a reminder to everyone and folks at home that these are revenues that simply get poured back into the festival to try to make a better event every time. The gains there you can see, we raised, and I do want to credit John Silvestri, who was a huge part of this festival in 2012. John and Brenda Rogers oversaw our corporate sponsorship campaign. They took it from $6,900 in support in 2011 to $10,750. An amazing job by those two folks. Vendor fees, we raised more. We raised about $2,000 more this year. We had more vendors. And we raised a little bit more on the product sales, almost $1,000, $800. In the revenue lines as percentages, corporate sponsorship is far and away the largest share of our revenue pie. Product sales is right behind it. And then vendor fees is another big piece. And as always, the municipal contribution, the $2,500 that you appropriate each year to support the festival. And then there's some miscellaneous revenues, which were reimbursements and stuff. So, and again, page 9, 10, and a little bit there on 11, give you the detail, again, that you're accustomed to seeing from last year's report. Bottom line, cash flow, page 11. We started with $2,800 in unexpended balance from 2011. We raised $30,000. We spent, roughly 26. So we have startup funds for next year of $7,000. So as you can see, we've, really more than doubled our startup funds going into next year. So I will say, as reference to our earlier discussion about recommended plan of action, we'll be sharing revenues with some of these nonprofits, helping us with some of these important functions. That's more than just sharing those revenues. As part of that, we'll look hard at our expenses. It's a whole thing. It's not simply, share these revenues. We've got to look at our expenses and make sure those are in line every year. I expect that we'll spend less going into this year simply because we have upgraded our electrical systems for the vendors, brand new stuff all the way around, and that's been a big investment over the past couple of years. So that's where we are on the financial report for the 2012 Moxie Festival.
Any questions from council?
Scott, do you see the Moxie Festival becoming a self-sustaining event at some point in the future?
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think,
I mean, and I only ask that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I only ask that because there's an annual appropriation from the town,
Yes.
which seems reasonable, but I'm wondering if at some point along the way, it won't be needed. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think ideally, I mean, that was kind of sort of the philosophy that we had last year when we moved towards reimbursing the town for costs that they incurred with the overtime. You know, certainly we'd like to make this no impact to the taxpayer if we could. I mean, I think it's, in my view, appropriation of town funds on an annual basis is a gesture, an important gesture, I think, to the festival. So I think, you know, if the festival can do well without it, certainly. But I think the town would want to continue to think about sort of placing its, forgive the expression, skin in the game for the festival going forward. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But I think, you know, we're talking about $2,500 in this case. I mean, it's not a huge sum to overcome if you have a strong vendor program, if you got a strong corporate sponsorship program. Yes, you probably do without town funds, but I think there's more to that story, I guess, is where I'm going.
it just sounded like, I didn't mean like next year,
No,
it sounded
understood,
like something
understood.
that's.
Yeah,
that's
I mean, who knows where
looking
we'll
really
be.
positive.
I don't know this, any of us knew 5 years ago, I sure didn't, where we would be today. So who knows in 5 years how this festival grows or how it sustains itself and how it changes. And so, you know, those things may ultimately fall entirely on the private sector and the folks who are our customers at the event.
Any other questions? I guess from this, I mean, if anybody had in doubt, the Moxie continues, right? The Moxie Festival is alive and kicking, and I think there's a lot of good people that step forward, and I think as we kind of think out of the box, and we have people like Roger that actually come in with a group of volunteers that actually kind of want to put their own name on it, on something a little bit different. I think it's great, and I think there's other people out there that kind of have a rebirth in the sense of thinking of different things that we can add on to it. And even though we look at the revenues, and this is awesome because that's actually what the town's picture of it. One of the bigger pictures that I think came out of the meeting on the 25th was, the economic impact that we don't calculate to the town. This looks like very minute numbers, I think, to what that weekend's worth of events does to the town, whether it's, our local convenience stores, our local McDonald's and ice cream stands and gas stations and little restaurants and, the revenues taken in by the car show and the 5K. It's just, if you were to put those numbers together, it would be, it'd be quite amazing, I think. It'd be
Yeah.
a number that'd be staggering, that people would.
It's hard to really know what the appropriate multiplier to use in that. And again, as you point out, I mean, for the Big Apple, for example, or Lisbon House of Pizza, what's their economic impact? But then again, I go back to the nonprofits. There's so many of them hold events, and the impact of that is a different type of impact. It's not necessarily a business one, but it allows programming to occur throughout the year that gets delivered to people who have needs or whatever it may be throughout the year. So I mean, yeah, it's an extraordinary event. I don't disregard what it means to spend $26,000. As I say, it's revenue neutral to the town in that sense. I mean, we're raising the funds. I don't diminish that, but at the same time, it's a small price tag for the benefit that gets realized, not only, in a single year, but over the 30 years of the event.
I think what we did realize that if something was to ever happen, it would be a big hole to fill for many nonprofits, and as a town as a whole, I think people would be walking around in July kind of lost. But thank you, Scott. Any other questions before we let Scott take off? Thank you, Scott. We asked for it, you gave it to us, and we do appreciate that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. And that, is that report available at the town office if someone has wanted
Yeah,
a
I mean,
copy
we
of
can
that?
certainly, I think it's online.
It is,
and,
okay.
And I think certainly anybody who wants copies or whatever, and I encourage, sometimes we can hand out reports, but I would encourage further dialogue if people have questions and stuff to, don't hesitate to contact me or members of the committee.
Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you, council. Appreciate it.
Next item, Twyla?
Finance Director's report.
Jessica's here to give us information.
Good evening.
Good evening. So in front of you, you have my finance report for the month of October. To summarize revenues for you, October brought in just over $208,000. This is primarily due to excise tax collection at $91,000 and state revenue sharing at $78,000. In October, we saw a tree growth reimbursement that was actually related to 2011 for $12,000, as well as transfer station revenues of $7,000, which is broken down by permit sales of $2,000, cardboard of $2,000, and yard items for just over $2,000. The Recreation Department saw just over $11,000 in revenues for October, and this is primarily due to before-school care of $5,000 and fitness center revenues of $4,000. Excise tax is just over 35% collected, and this is right in line with where we were last year at this time with the same budget. So that's a good sign. State revenue sharing is at 33%, which is slightly below last year, where we were at 36%, but we were also on a budget of $830,000 versus $820,000 this year. That is all I have for revenues, unless you have questions for me.
Questions on revenue? Still quite early, so.
Yeah. Moving on to the expenses, total expenditures for the month of October were $984,645. Of this, 35% or $341,000 was related to personnel services, including wages and benefits. Lease purchases made up 38% of our total expenditures at $379,000, and this is primarily due to our annual debt service payments. Contractual services made up approximately 14% at $134,000, primarily due to the payment of hydrant rental fees of $73,000, waste disposal fees of $19,000, legal fees of $5,000, postage fees of $6,000, and town building expenses of $9,000, which again is where we pay for our heating oil, electricity, and telephone. The postage fees, just to clarify, we didn't mail out mass mailings for $6,000. It's a refill of our meter to be able to use throughout the year. Capital purchases made up 8% of total expenditures, primarily due to the payment of our bond principal at $76,000. And repair and maintenance or supplies made up 5% at $48,000, again, primarily due to gas fuel purchases. Are there any questions on expenses?
Anything, council? Is there anything you see alarming at all that's out of character compared to?
No, it's very uncannily similar to last year. So.
And quite early still, right?
Yeah. Just as a side note, as of October 31st, we have collected 103% or $4.9 million of the September portion of the tax commitment. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean all tax bills have been paid. It just means some people have paid early on their total tax commitment. And this is also slightly above last year where we were only 95% collected. So. I have finalized the financial statement audit with the auditors, and currently they are scheduled to come before you on December 4th and give you their report. And that is all I have, unless you have further questions for me.
No, I think I'm all set. Anything from council? No? So far, so good?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla?
Is the Finance Committee discussion?
You want me to take it?
Go ahead.
As a result of the election, it was voted by the majority of the town to actually move forward with the Finance Committee. We'd actually spent quite a bit of time as council actually trying to get this prepared, so if it did come into a positive vote, that we'd actually be in a way of getting that taken care of. Steve has actually put together a timeline of when this process is going to be working through. There is, the applications, I believe, are online.
We're online.
And you can actually come to the town office and actually meet with Steve for these applications also. Pretty much what the applications are is to fill this board. We're looking for hopefully some fairly capable people that actually have some background in accounting, hopefully some background in municipal and school budgets if we can. So when they come in, they will actually be really qualified to actually look and meet the criteria of it. The applications, we're hoping to have them all in by December 20th. The council will have final say, but we actually met with the school the other night, and part of the theme of that meeting was the idea of, since the school is actually going to be looked at also with this review, to actually have the school actually have kind of a say of looking over the applications. We are going to use some of the people that we have, hopefully if we can pull them together from the people that actually look at our loan process, to actually look at the applications and give the council a recommendation of who they feel would be the best applicants. We do have applications coming in already, and it seems so. I think we will have a good group of people, and hopefully we'll be able to fulfill those. So, if you have an interest in the town and you actually have a background in accounting or actually have some municipal or school budget background, feel free to fill out an application, or anybody can, and put everything you can on there, because we, like I say, there will be hopefully a handful or more than a handful of applications to go through, and this won't be something that the council will just look at and make a decision. We're going to have outside people to actually kind of give us recommendations on who they feel that we can work with. So December 20th is the date that we're going to be stopping the applications from coming in, and from then we're going to move forward. We're hoping to actually, by the end of this year, actually fulfill that group. And then by the beginning of January, Steve has by January 8th, we're actually going to appoint the Finance Committee. We'll get them up and rolling so they can actually kind of help us with this year budget. But this is not a real short-term committee. This is a long-term committee, where it means that they will be meeting monthly, meeting with the council quarterly, looking at not just our financials when it comes to budget, but overviewing the idea of our buying policies, looking at the school on their financials. Internal controls. There's a lot of things that this group, I think, will actually be able to help direct us and give us an eye that the council really, and the school board really doesn't have the opportunity to really to focus in on. And I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people have really good positive thoughts that this is going to be a good asset to us. Again, this isn't, as much as this committee is there to look at our finances, it's not, as we spoke to the school board, it's not so much there to critique us, but more help us and give us guidance. When we do go look out the bond, for someone to have a really good idea of our finances and actually, have a recommendation that whether we can afford it or not. So as council, as how would I say, how involved is the budget we get, it's still nice to have people there that actually can dive in and really get a year-round look at what we're doing. Anything you want to add to that, Steve?
Yeah, the ordinance is on the website with this agenda package and the application is on the website, so if anybody is interested, go online and take a look at what the outline of the ordinance is and tasks that's going to be asked of them to do. And they will also be coming up with their own ideas of things that we may not have considered that they might take a look at, and to work with Jessica and myself and the council to really help us in areas that we may not be seeing. That's it.
And one of the other functions of this group also is as Jessica mentioned, that audits actually come in and be completed. This group yearly will actually help Jessica and Kathy work through the audit process and actually give a little guidance so they can have a little bit of an outside view when it comes and take place of our audit committee that we've had in the past. Again, I think it's a positive thing, so I think I think we're going to, the town is full of qualified people, this without a doubt, to do this job. So hopefully many of them will fill the applications and we'll have a good group to pick from. Kind of looking forward to it, kind of excited that get the group together and actually have someone to lean on when it comes budget time. Any other questions from council on that? I think we actually spent quite a bit of time on this and getting up to this point, so hopefully we can see it start and get rolling. And if anybody has any questions, they can come in and see Steve.
To me, yep.
Next item, Twyla?
Is the water department discussion?
Have you seen Roger coming in the door yet? He was going to be here at 1:15. He's a little late.
That's no problem. I can actually go through this if you want to. Along with the Finance Committee decision, the Water Department merger was on the ballot. The majority of the people actually just voted for the idea of making some type of move with the town and the water department to work more closely together and somehow work together. This is something that actually is going to take some time. There is going to be nothing that's going to happen overnight on this particular decision, because it's a very complex item. I've been speaking with council. I've been actually working with Steve to try to get us as much information as we can from, on a legal standpoint and procedural, exactly how this would take place if it could, and not so if it could, and how it would happen. One thing that I've had a lot of phone calls on this, and a lot of people asking questions, and people thinking that something's going to happen overnight, and it will not. This is something that the town and the council is going to take a lot of time on. We're going to get recommendations. The water department is very active and is very busy, and there's a lot of things happening that is going to, it's going to have to be some work with both departments and kind of working together to try to make the best thing happen. So,
I want you to go through the outline.
if I'm not sure if he's prepared, did you have an outline as far as for the logistics of, and that we can go over that after in a sense anyways, of you had actually given us paper, and what Roger had done at one point in time was actually just give us the if we were to fulfill the idea of the town getting away from the charter that was originally written for the water department, there are quite a bit of actions that need to take place, and it's not short term. It does take some period of time, but just to assure the town there is nothing that's going to happen overnight with the water. The people in place are doing a good job. They actually can handle any concerns, as they always have for a long period of time. This decision from the town is something that we are going to work for, because I think that was voted upon for the council to move forward. My kind of, initially, we want to make sure we get, to me as a council, to get the finance committee up and running first of all. We actually have a new council coming on next month, maybe some new leadership to the council, so a lot of this will actually kind of take place after that. But again, we're going to work hopefully hand in hand with the water department to, as things move forward, having some meetings and workshops and trying to find out what would be the best for the people of Lisbon, and hopefully we can kind of make this all work out in the long term. And it's going to take some time, though. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight. But if you do have any questions about this, if anybody in the town does, I'd be more than happy to take any phone calls, or Steve can. It's just very limited information. I mean, the question that we put on the ballot was a non-binding question. It was more for the idea of us to know as council whether or not we need to spend time and energy to look at this further, and that's basically what the vote was. So we will. It's just something that's not going to happen really quick. That's all. We're going to make sure whatever we do right, and take our time and make sure it's in the best interest of the town. Anything for council as far as on that? I mean, we have a fairly busy schedule coming up, and we will be having workshops, and we'll make sure that they are well announced, so if anybody has any questions, we can actually work through them. Anything from council on that? All set? Twilight, next item?
Next item is town manager's report.
Just so for the council, December 11th, we have a workshop, as Don Fellows mentioned, with the planning board. We'll be going, it will be the kickoff of the master plan of the 196 project. That's going to take up a lot of Amanda's time as she goes into the second part of the year. And hopefully the public should be paying attention, because we'll be asking for public participation in public hearings and getting input from business and citizens about the future growth of the 196 corridor and what we'd like to see. Just a quick note, our dispatch center, all the new equipment is in and up and running. It's been a 2-week process to date. There's still more going on. Chief Brooks and his department, especially Sergeant Moore, have spent a tremendous amount of time here making sure everything goes right. We've had our glitches, but it's been a nice process. Also, we have a signed contract from Sabatis. We've offered Green the opportunity to join us as well, along with Durham. We hope that Durham will get the contract signed tonight. Green didn't have a full board as of last night's meeting, so they put it on hold, and they'll address it in December. David and I have both have been fielding questions from some of the smaller communities and asking about dispatch, and as we had told them before, with what our status is with equipment, we can only take on so many, and they need to really talk to their county commissioners and have their elected officials work with them. There's a lot of concerns. The holiday schedule's coming up. We will be closed on Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving. The limited staff here, police, and the holiday also, for Christmas holiday, follows the same kind of schedule on New Year's. There is nothing in the personnel policy about the day before Christmas, and some of the employees are wondering about that, and we will work the day before New Year's. That's usually not a big deal, but something we can decide at our next meeting, but just to be aware of. And when our new people come on board, I'm setting up meetings to work with our 2 new counselors to bring them up to date on our budget process, the budget numbers, projects that we're working on, and then we'll start our council orientation in January, and we'll have our legal counsel come in one night for after a meeting, go through all the same ideas that we did before, and we've added a few other things to it. And then we'll have a weekend where we tour our facilities, and you get to see some of the things that we've completed this year and some of the things that we need to look at for the upcoming budget. And that's all I have.
Next item, Twyla.
Yes, at this time, we'd like to announce the results from the election for November 6, 2012. Our local ballot results for Town Council at large, 3-year, Greg Garrison won that seat with 2,174 votes. For Town Council District 1, Mark Lunt is re-elected with 1,781 votes. For Town Council District 2, Dylan Pesky won the seat with 1,388 votes. For School Committee, there were 2 positions. They're 3-year terms. Pete Reed won his seat with 2,134 votes, and Kathy Jurgen with 2,620 votes. For Water Commission, it was won by a write-in candidate, Stan Dowdy, with 129 votes. The question 1, to remove the Budget Advisory Board from the charter, passed by 69 votes, more than the no votes. The Water Department question passed 2,247, which is 35 more than the no votes. Total ballots cast here in Lisbon was 4,833. That includes our overseas and our military voters.
Thank you, Twyla.
You're welcome. The next item was under appointments. Order 2012-175, Appeals Board, term expiring June 30th, 2015.
And we actually have I believe the one that you actually asked, mentioning is the idea from Bruce Marshall for the Board of Appeals. Entertain a
Was up
motion?
for a very appealing challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Meets quite often, right? We meet up all the
I'll
time.
make that motion to accept the application from Bruce Marshall for the Appeals Board.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Welcome aboard, and I'm sure Steve will get them up
We will get them up to date.
date and where that needs to be. Next item, please.
Order 2012-175, Council Chairman's appointment of the Ethics Panel Chairman.
Yearly, we actually look at the ethics panel. Mr. David Bowie actually had interest in actually serving as chair. He's done well in the past, and I'd like to bring that recommendation forward to actually continue him being chair of the ethics. I would entertain a motion to vote.
Make a motion for David Bowie to stay on, become ethics chairman.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Motion passed, 6-0.
Next item, please.
Council Communications.
Anybody have any communications?
I have one. December 1st is the Very Merry Main Street. I don't have a schedule, but I believe there's a schedule online.
Yep.
And a lot of things happening. Santa is coming. I know Jessica's involved, so she might know more than I do, but it's, have anything to add?
There's photos with Santa at the MTM gym, 5 to 7 p.m. And we also have trees and wreaths that have been donated, a handful of trees and wreaths that have been donated by local businesses that will be decorated and available for raffle. We'll be raffling them off at the end of the evening.
And most businesses on Main Street are open that evening, and some offer music, some offer cookies and things like that, so.
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate, those kinds of things, so,
Hopefully we have snow.
yeah. we
Yeah, a
had
little bit of snow. And what time does Santa turn the lights on?
The festivities at the pavilion start at 4:30 with caroling and snacks provided by, I believe, the Lisbon Falls Baptist Church. And Santa will arrive right around 4:45, 5 o'clock to light the tree.
And after that, there will be horse carriage rides or
Yes.
wagon rides through town for a couple hours, I think, after that.
Yes,
Yep.
from 5 to 7, there will be rides between MTM and downtown.
All kinds of activities, but there is there is an agenda or
There's
that's
a
supposed
flyer.
is that
Yeah.
online also?
The flyer should now be online, as well as notices being emailed within the school system as well. And the local businesses should have flyers, if they don't already, shortly.
Perfect, thank you. Anything else, Gina? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, she knew more about the schedule than I did. I know basic facts, so, did a great job, Jessica.
Anything else for communications?
Actually, just a couple of things I wanted to comment, and I didn't get Scott before he left, but the planning board report that was included in our packet and the Moxie Plan of Action, I thought were very well written. I think that they did a great job putting all the information from our public hearing that we had in our work session together. The planning board really captured the moment, if you will. It's obvious that you've done a lot of work on that. The Moxie Plan, I was one of those people that walked away from that meeting at the end of September thinking this was kind of like a doomsday thing, so it was nice to see all of that be pulled together. And then it's amazing the things that happen when you're gone. I was gone for almost 2 weeks and came back, and I'm truly amazed at the signs that are put up. When you come into Lisbon from Bowdoin and you come in from Lisbon from Lewiston, the signs are absolutely beautiful, and I happened to notice yesterday there's one at the sewer plant. So it's a really nice touch for our community. So
It's a new one at the Public Works as well.
I'll have to get all around. I haven't gone
On
to
your way
the
to the transfer station.
Come down Route 9
but-
too.
I was gonna say, I did see that one. I didn't think to add that, but it was a very nice touch. I was very pleased with that. So that's it for me.
Good things, right?
Yes.
Anything else from council? Mark, all set? I just want to add, and the elections this year actually were really close. There's a lot of close elections, to say the least, and I want to congratulate Garrett on his win. That was something that's, as we know, was a tight vote all the way through town. I'm sure Garrett do as well, and he always has, so.
Thank you.
It was definitely I'm sure there was some sleepless nights up to it
Oh,
and after the
yeah.
election, so when you start thinking of all these people voting and less than, 28 votes separating,
Yeah,
that is,
that was interesting.
that's a nail biter, just like
Sure
our
was.
vote. Our votes in town, and we actually had some pretty interesting things that we put out to voters, and they were really close. So that means a lot of people had, taken some thought of it. I had an opportunity to stop and see Tyler Belletti that ran for council, and thanked him for running because, he just I was very impressed tonight for him and Eric Materia for the night that they came in for the candidate forum, that they actually were very, very informed on what was happening, and they had a very big concern of what the town was. So. And I asked Tyler just to keep in mind that he would actually serve in other capacities in town, and he was actually very, very interested in doing that. Same to Eric. He spent a lot of time, and even after the elections, he's been coming to our meetings and very informed in the town. And I don't think he's going to go wear it off. And I think these people have a very vested interest in the town. And thank you again for running, because it does mean a lot to actually have an election where you have multiple people running, and it gives the town something to look at, something to vote for. It's nice to run unopposed, Mark, I realize, but it's always nice to have a little competition out there too, It's always nice to have a little competition, and that way there it actually brings out some stuff that typically we may not think about, so, which is good. So again, thank you. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we can find a spot here for you so we can get you involved so you know why you didn't want to do it. But that's mine. Things continue on. The signs they are wonderful, and the town's been doing a really good job, and there's a lot of things happening. It's amazing because it's some of the things happening from the street sweeping, the 196 looking better, to some of the, the 196 and Route 9 things we're looking at. And a lot of this, we actually set as goals way back at the beginning of last year, and it just starting to actually come through. So, I think it's a lot of what this council has done, and again, thank you very much. I mean, it's been a great year for the council, and as many hurdles as we had to jump, I think we got quite a bit done. It may not always seem that way, but we have. So, looking forward to another great year. Twyla, next item.
Is under executive session, Order 2012-176, 7, and 8. Executive sessions per 1 MRSA Section 405-6D, Labor Negotiations, General Unit, 1 MRSA Section 405-6D, Public Works Unit, and 1 MRSA Section 405-6D, Sergeant's Unit.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? And
Pass.
just to let people know, I do not believe we'll be coming out with a vote, but I won't say no.
No, don't say no.
I won't say no. Actually, I don't know,
Say
I don't
yes.
know all the details, so I just don't want people to wait for a long period of time not knowing. So it is a possible
It'll
vote.
be a lengthy
It
conversation.
may be a lengthy conversation, but if it means that good things come out of votes, we'll wait, right?